Hello everyone. Now we will discuss electrical sources. Electrical sources supplies energy into the circuit which gives current into the circuit and gives power into the circuit. Their basic examples are power supplies and generators. If you see the electrical sources, there are two categories in electrical sources. One is DC source and other one is AC source. DC source are known as direct current source and AC source are known as alternating current source. These sources are divided into two categories. One is voltage source, other one is current source. These voltage source and current source are further divided into two categories, independent source and dependent source. Now you can see current source are also divided in independent source and dependent source. These independent sources are divided into two categories. One is ideal source, other one is practical source. You can see there is ideal and practical source. But for dependent source, voltage source are divided into current dependent voltage source and voltage dependent voltage source. That is CDVS and VDVS. For current source, the dependent source are divided into current dependent current source and voltage dependent current source. So these are the basic structure or of the sources you can see in the next problems. So if we see the ideal independent source, what is ideal independent source? The first one, what is independent source? Independent sources are those sources which values will be fixed if there is change in circuit parameter or circuit values, there will be no change in the sources. Or you can say if we applied V voltage or I current and there is a variable resistor in the circuit, then the voltage will not be changed. If you vary the resistance, then the source voltage will not be changed. Or for dependent sources, these sources values are depend upon circuit values. That means if it is voltage dependent, then this source voltage will depend upon the voltage of any other circuit element, or if it is current dependent source, then its value will be depends upon current on any circuit elements. So for this, independent source are not depend on circuit values and dependent source are depend upon circuit values. If you see the ideal source have no internal resistance. If its value is V volt and it will gives V volt. If its value of I current, then it will gives I current. But in practical source there will be some internal resistance which will give small drop in the values, that is a small drop in the values in the voltage or current. So if you see the structure of practical source, then there will be a small drop in the final values, that is practical source. They have some internal resistance. Now come to the DC voltage source. DC voltage source can define by these two symbols. One is two parallel lines, one is smaller, one is lesser. This is simple battery symbols, and other one is a circle which in which are two polarities, one is plus and one is minus. This is the basic structure of DC voltage source. Or if you see the current source, the basic symbol of DC current source is like this, in which arrow point is positive terminal and back point is negative terminals. So if you see the DC voltage source, there is two category. One is ideal source, other one is practical source. If you see in the picture, a voltage source Vs applied into a circuit which gives IL current and its output voltage is V0, then V0 is equals to Vs for ideal source. So if you see the graph, if we change in the circuit, then the source voltage will not change, it will give fixed value Vs. And if you see ideal current source, this is the basic structure of current source, in which a current source Is is applied into a load for which V is the output voltage and I is the output current. So if you see, this current source value will be fixed if we change in the load, that means if we change in the voltage V, then output current I is equals to Is. Now current source I is equals to Is, and in voltage source V0 is equals to Vs. You see the practical source having some internal resistance. In voltage source, internal resistance will be in series, and in current source, internal resistance will be in practical, because it gives some drop in the output values. For voltage source, V0 is given by V0 is equals to Vs minus IL into internal resistance. So in the practical source, if you see the basic structure, V0 is defined by a internal source Vs and some internal resistance R internal, and its output voltage gives by some additional drop, this is IL into R internal. So net output voltage V0 is equals to Vs minus IL into R internal. This IL into R internal is the voltage drop. Now come to the current source. If you see the current source, this current source have output voltage V and output current is I. So now the final value of I will be Is minus V divided by R internal. So the net output current will be a drop current, that is Is minus V divided by R internal. So you can see in practical sources there will be a some drop which is defined in a characteristics. So these drops gives some lesser voltage. So you can see for voltage source internal resistance are in series, and for current source internal resistance are in parallel. So if you compare these ideal and practical sources, if you compare ideal voltage source and practical voltage source, you can derive for ideal voltage source internal resistance is 0, or if you compare ideal and practical current sources, you can derive ideal current source having infinite resistance. So from the previous discussion, we know that ideal voltage source has zero internal resistance and ideal current source has infinite internal resistance. Now come to the dependent source. Dependent source are having two categories. One is current dependent, other one is voltage dependent. If you see the basic symbol for voltage source, this is current dependent voltage source. If it is a voltage source, then the symbol will be plus minus representation, but it is a square represented box, and its output value depend upon any circuit current. So if it is voltage dependent voltage source, then its output value depend upon some circuit voltage. Now come to the current source. Current source having two category. One is current dependent current source, other one is voltage dependent current source. Its basic symbol is basically a square shape structure in which a current symbol is defined. If it is current dependent, then its output values depend upon any circuit current element, that is 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 equals to beta I1. And if it is voltage dependent, then its output value depend upon circuit voltage, that is V1. So you can say current dependent voltage source Vs depend upon current I1. Voltage dependent voltage source Vs depend upon any voltage V1. And for current source, current dependent current source Is depend upon any value I1. And for voltage dependent current source, Is depend upon any value V1 in the given circuit. Thank you for watching the concept. Please like and subscribe my channel.